Hello everyone. My today's video is about the Citizenship Amendment Act and all the riots and protests that are happening because of that. So I'll come straight to the point. The Citizenship Amendment Act gives basic human rights to the persecuted minorities of Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan. Now you have to understand that the persecuted minorities of these countries are living in extremely different conditions from the minorities of India. The minorities of India actually have more rights than the majority of India, which is Hindus. So minorities in India have special provisions where their religious institutions are not taxed, where they have special tax holidays and special subsidies for their Hajj and their other religious pilgrimages, where they have special provision for education and reservations, and where there is a right to education which allows minorities to get education in all universities, but specific Muslim universities are not a part of this RTE. So you have to understand that the minorities in India are already enjoying more rights than the majority in India. Now let's look at the minorities in Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan. Now do you know that the number of girls, and most of these are underage girls, they are minors, most of these are from economically weak kind of backgrounds. The number of girls abducted and either raped or forcibly converted or both in Pakistan just for this year is more than 80. More than 80, imagine. And these are young girls whose entire lives have been destroyed. They have been forced to convert to Islam. They have been married off to men who are sometimes more than double their age and who are obviously lecherous, and who have been raped and who have been forced to give statement that they are doing this out of their own will at gunpoint or making some other threats. And the blasphemy laws of Pakistan do absolutely nothing to stop this kind of forced conversion. The cases go to court and the court always rules in favor of the majority in Pakistan. So the courts and the laws in Pakistan do absolutely nothing for the basic human rights of Hindus. They don't have basic human rights. They cannot do anything if tomorrow their children are raped or if tomorrow they are held at gunpoint and forced to give a statement. Now Bangladesh is also in a similar situation. The urban areas are of course much more modern, much more developed, but that does not change the basic jihadi nature of many of the people there. There are entire villages in Bangladesh which are just burnt because they are Hindu villages. The temples are destroyed. The temples are destroyed just because they are Hindu temples. Even an FIR or a police complaint is not recorded for these things. And the police refuse to take any action, they even refuse to identify the miscreants. This is the kind of violation of human rights which is experienced by the Bangladeshi Hindus. And if, God forbid, but any Muslim in Bangladesh converts to Hinduism or even becomes an atheist, they are so unsafe. They cannot go back to Bangladesh. They just have to leave the country. They have no refuge in their own country. And these are the kind of minority violations of human rights which are getting solved by the Citizenship Amendment Act. Now the Citizenship Amendment Act gives power, at least some power, to these minorities so they can just live their lives in peace. Now you have to understand, simply immigrating to India does not solve their problems. If you go and visit the Hindu camps, the Hindu refugee camps in India, they live in really bad condition. They have absolutely no IDs because they have only Pakistani IDs. They don't have any ID for India. They don't have any money because they have just left their homes out of desperation just to save their lives. They have no means of livelihood. They have no means to survive. Their children cannot go to school. They cannot get admission in school just because they do not have any citizenship in India. The schools do not take those children. You have to understand the reality before you start shouting and screaming in support of the protesters of the Citizenship Amendment Act. And these people come to India, and many times even in India they are at the mercy of just generous people who come and donate food and clothing to them. They live on land which is historically donated by government, but that means that they don't even have basic things like electricity and a proper water supply. They can do absolutely nothing if there is a malaria outbreak or if there is some other infectious disease outbreak. They have no means. So immigrating to India does not completely solve their problem. It only saves their lives, but it does not solve their real problem. What do they live for? Please think, if you don't have anything in life, what will you live for? And even then they are grateful that they are at least able to live as Hindus. But try to think of the quality of life which you are living and the quality of life which they are living. Just because they were left behind in Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan at the time of partition. Just think before you go and outrage or shoot the keyboard and start supporting publications like The Wire and The Print or international media. Think about what you are doing. And you have to understand that what these so-called protesters, they're actually riots, they're not protesters. What they're doing now is things like torching buses, vandalizing public property, torching ambulances, not just buses, pelting stones. Which normal educated person pelts stones? Tell me. If you are an educated person watching this video, are you just going to pelt stones at somebody because your opinion is different about something? No, that's not what educated people do. And that's what these so-called protesters are doing. And this whole educated community of India, which has absolutely no connection with the reality of the persecuted minorities of these Islamic countries, they just chime along with them. Based on what they have read in international media or what they have heard Barkha Dutt say or what they have heard Ravish say or what they have heard any XYZ fraud say. Why don't you go and make some effort to at least understand what is happening here? And the most important thing here is that this Citizenship Amendment Act does not change the rights of existing citizens of India, nor is it changing the immigration rules. Please, for God's sake, understand that there is a difference in immigration and citizenship. You can still apply for a visa to India. That is not getting changed by this act. If you are an immigrant from some other country coming to India, the laws remain the same for you. Citizenship is a completely different ball game. And this is just expediting the process of giving citizenship to these persecuted minorities. Muslims have so many, more than 50 countries where they can seek refuge. At the drop of a hat, they can find some other place to live. And I've seen it happen in my whole life. I've seen it happen. Muslims who wanted better, trade or whatever, or they wanted to live in their own community, can easily go to Iraq. They can easily go to some other Gulf country and live, luxurious lives there. I'm not stating these as hypothetical things. I've seen real living people do this. Whereas Hindus, you can see, they are literally in mortal fear of their lives every single day in these Islamic countries. And what they are doing now, these kind of public riots, vandalizing public property, protesting in public places, is very similar. The exact pattern of partition is being followed. But moronic people who have absolutely no clue of the history of India do not even understand this. What they're doing now is what they did in partition. In partition, these kind of protests were organized in an orchestrated way by Muslims to demand a Pakistan. What they're doing now is the same thing. This time they demand that, Muslims should be just allowed a free entry into India. Why? Is there any logical reason? The difference between partition and this time is that at the time of partition, it was Muslims who were organizing these riots. But this time, it is the moronic Hindus, liberal Hindus, who want to chime along and support these people. Why? Because you're ignorant, or are you stupid, or are you just basically a hate-filled person? Why can't you just let the rights of those Hindus be restored? What is your problem really? What is your problem? And let me make this very clear that all these people who are protesting, they are tied up with political parties who want to use Muslims as a vote bank for them. That is what their real problem is. They want to bring in Muslims as a vote bank for them. And if you, the casual observer who is chiming along with them, is doing the same thing, you should know you are actually supporting more and more violence in India. You should know this. And we have been documenting all crimes against Hindus in all the countries, but it's a process, but the numbers are so mind-boggling that the kind of patterns which they follow in Pakistan are now being replicated in India. The girls getting abducted and raped in India is getting replicated by these jihadis. So if you are supporting these jihadis, you should know what you are supporting exactly. And if you claim to be a liberal, then you should know that having basic human rights should be a part of your liberalism. What kind of a liberal are you if you cannot support the basic human rights of some people just because they belong to the wrong religion? Just because they are Hindus or Sikhs or Jains or Christians, you want to deny them their basic human rights? Is that your definition of liberalism? Then you are not a liberal, you are a hypocrite. And this is all I have to say to the educated morons of this society. If you find my video offensive, then please understand that Hindus are getting killed and raped in huge numbers. And what I'm saying is I'm trying to voice all of their concern. And what you are doing is you're actually supporting their murderers and their perpetrators. So please think before you go and outrage on social media or in public places and you start cheering on all these stupid college students who are joining hands with the jihadis. Thank you.